Refusing to forgive my mom after discovering the truth about my dad in a letter hidden inside a birthday card. Now my family says I'm being unfair. I'm still trying to process all of this, so bear with me. A few months ago, I went no contact with my mom's 61F after discovering something that has completely turned my life upside down. My family is furious with me, calling me ungrateful and dramatic, but I can't bring myself to forgive her for what she did. Growing up, I 25F believed my dad died in a car accident when I was 2. That's the story my mom always told me, and I had no reason to question it. She rarely mentioned him, and anytime I asked, she would get uncomfortable and change the subject. I assumed it was too painful for her to talk about, so I didn't push. I grew up thinking he was just a memory, gone too soon. But a few months ago, everything changed. I was cleaning out my old room at my mom's house, getting ready to move into my own place, when I stumbled upon a box of childhood keepsake school drawings, old toys, and a stack of birthday cards. I started going through the cards, feeling nostalgic, when one for my 3rd birthday caught my attention. It was sealed with extra tape around the edges, which seemed odd, so I opened it. Tucked inside the card was a folded piece of paper, a letter. At first, I thought it was just a forgotten note, but as soon as I started reading, my heart dropped. The letter was from my dad. He wrote about how much he missed me and how sorry he was for not being able to see me on my birthday. He mentioned that he was being kept away, but promised he would keep trying to be part of my life. He signed off with, "I love you always." Dad, I sat there in shock. My dad? Writing to me a year after he supposedly died? I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. I confronted my mom immediately. I held up the letter and demanded to know what was going on. At first, she tried to play dumb, acting confused and asking where I found it. But when I pushed harder, the truth came out: my dad wasn't dead. He was alive. And she had lied to me for my entire life. It turns out that when I was 2, my parents had a falling out, and my mom went for full custody. She didn't want him in my life and fabricated the story about his death to make sure I wouldn't ask questions. According to her, she thought it was easier for me to believe he was dead than to explain why he wasn't around. I was speechless. This woman let me grieve my father, allowed me to grow up thinking he was gone, all the while knowing he was alive and trying to contact me. When I asked her why she kept his letters, why she didn't just throw them away if she wanted to keep him out of my life, she shrugged. She claimed she didn't want me to resent her later if I ever found out. The worst part? She didn't even apologize. She didn't seem remorseful at all. She just kept saying she did what she thought was best, that he wasn't a good influence, and she didn't want me growing up around him. But I wasn't interested in her excuses. She robbed me of a relationship with my father, and she didn't even care. I didn't stop there. I couldn't. I needed to know more. Over the next few weeks, I found out that my dad had written to me every year for my birthday letters that she never gave me. He'd even tried to see me a few times, but my mom always made sure I wasn't around. She went as far as changing our phone number and moving houses just to keep him from reaching us. I left her house that day and haven't spoken to her since. My family, on the other hand, has been relentless. They're all telling me I'm overreacting, that my mom did what she had to do as a single parent, and that I should be grateful for everything she sacrificed for me. They don't seem to understand the depth of the betrayal I feel. But how can I just forgive her? I spent my entire life mourning someone who wasn't even dead. I lived with this hole in my heart, thinking I'd never know my father, when in reality he was out there, wanting to be part of my life. And now that I know the truth, I don't even know if I want to find him. What if he's not the person I've imagined all these years? What if reconnecting with him opens up even more wounds? I'm lost. I feel like I've been lied to my whole life, and I don't know how to move forward. My mom expects me to forgive her, to sweep it under the rug and pretend everything is fine. But how can I do that when I don't even know who I am anymore? Everything I believed about my family, about my past, has been turned on its head. So, Ada for refusing to forgive my mom after finding out she lied about my dad for my entire life.
Next story.
Hid my family wealth from my boyfriend, and now he's upset after finding out. Family says I should have been honest from the start. So, I 17F have been dating my boyfriend Mike 16M for about 3 months now. We're both juniors in high school, and everything has been going really well between us. We met through mutual friends about 8 months ago and hit it off quickly. He's funny, kind, and down to earth. We have an amazing relationship, but our financial situations are different. My family is pretty well off. Not rich, no mansions, yachts, etc., but we live in a nice house, take 1 to 2 vacations per year, and I don't really have to stress about money. I only work just so I'm not sitting at home doing nothing. That being said, I've always been taught not to flaunt it, nor bring it up. We drive normal cars and live a fairly average lifestyle, even if we have more savings than others. I never talk about money with people. Mike's family doesn't have as much. He's mentioned how they struggle sometimes to pay bills and how they have to budget for everything. Because of this, he's made a few comments about rich kids being spoiled or out of touch, which is why I didn't bring up my family's situation. I didn't want him to see me differently or feel awkward about the differences between us. I don't care what his financial situation is. I love him anyway. He's seen my house and knows my parents run a business, but he doesn't know about all my parents' assets, which make a lot more money, and is what keeps us comfortable. So he doesn't know how much we really have. Well, recently Mike and I had dinner with my family along with cousins. We all sat down and talked about traveling in general, and one of my cousins mentioned a vacation home my parents had. She was talking about the cabin we had in the mountains. Our family loves camping and hiking, so we vacation there sometimes. Mike went quiet, but I could tell something was up. Later, when we were alone, he asked why I never told him that my family had so much money. I tried to explain that it wasn't something I thought was important, and I didn't want him to feel weird about it. Besides, he knew I was more well off than him. He just didn't know the full extent. That's when he got a bit upset and said something that caught me off guard. He mentioned how I could have helped him out with some of the things he's been struggling with financially, like gas money, or when his car needed repairs a few months ago. He said that he was not asking for handouts, but he said it feels like I was hiding something from him when I could have made things easier. I told him I didn't want to make things awkward between us by offering money, and I didn't think it was my place to get involved with his finances. But now, he says it feels like I wasn't being honest and that maybe I don't trust him enough to share that part of my life. Over the next few weeks, Mike started getting a little invasive. He looked up my house on Zillow and was shocked at the value. Mike showed me his screen and was upset that he didn't know how rich we were. He also started looking up my family members on social media sites to see what they do and how rich they are. Cousins, uncles, aunts. I got really mad and told him I didn't appreciate him digging through my family life and my finances are not his business. I asked him to stop being weird. Mike then responded he was just trying to fully understand what my lifestyle is like, but I think he's going completely off the rails. I didn't mean for it to turn into such a big deal. I was just trying to avoid making him feel uncomfortable or like he was less than me. I also believed my family finances are irrelevant, but now I'm wondering if I should have been more open from the start.
Next story.
I went no contact and stopped welcoming my bill until after they accused me of tearing the family apart. Now they're playing the victim and family is divided. I 31F and my husband 32M are planning on hosting his parents' visit to our city soon. The original plan was only hosting his parents, and now my BLM 36 and Sile 20F want to crash and come with his parents to visit us. I told him they are not welcome, and if they show up to our doorstep, I am going to my parents without any notice, and we will have major issues if he allows them to come. For context, a few months ago my husband and I had just found out we were pregnant for the first time. Not even a day after we found out, we were going visit his parents. It was still a secret at this time as I was feeling so sensitive. The Bill and Sile live with my husband's parents. The whole weekend, my Bill was being rude towards me if I was napping. Because I was so sleepy from the pregnancy, which was also new for me, he would intentionally slam doors and yell at me for being lazy. I told my husband and his parents I wouldn't tolerate an angry man in the house because I was never exposed to an angry man in the house, despite growing up living with a dad and two brothers. This also isn't the first time my Bill has irrationally yelled at me or my husband. My husband is the younger brother and I guess is just used to having his brother lash out and not reacting much. All I communicated to my Mill, Phil, and husband is that I won't come back if the environment continues to be this toxic. The next day, my husband and Phil were grilling and I was prepping sides with my Mile. The Bill and Sil are nowhere in sight. When we all eventually sit down for dinner, my Bill moved all my cooked food away from him in a rude manner, basically slamming the dishes away. We all ignored that. Eventually, over that same dinner, I asked my Sal to please pass something and Beal lost it. He called me names, said I am tearing the family apart. Normally, I would have taken it and tossed some words back ... But I was so sensitive from the pregnancy and tension from being around him that I just started crying. He kept yelling and said I was acting, and eventually my Mile husband defended me and tried to console me. We left the next morning without any follow-up. My Bill blocked me from his phone, my Mel blocked me, he probably took her phone and did this, and Sil also blocked me. I spent 3 years building a good relationship with my in-laws for the sake of pleasing my husband and my bile destroyed it all. Beak, I called out his angry tantrums as something I would not tolerate. When hubby and got back home after that hellish trip, 2 weeks went by where things were tense and weird. I wanted a resolution, but my hubby and Mile made me feel like I was the reason it happened ... I was the one who was attacked verbally. The stress stayed with me for those 2 weeks ... I stopped sleeping. I started exercising more to help my body relax and redirect my energy to my first pregnancy. I miscarried from what I believed to be the stress of it all. Now I can't help but blame my Bill and told my husband I'm not interested in seeing them for a long time. I need to heal. I've been in therapy. I gained and lost 40 pounds from it all. I sporadically fall into hysterical sobs and I've been going to therapy to understand myself better. I am in a much better place and thinking about trying to get pregnant again. I lost my whole summer just getting myself together. Now coming back to the present, my hubby tells me he can't stop his brother from coming to see us and that I'm getting in the way of everyone healing. Ada for putting my foot down and saying my Bill and Sil are not welcome.